Hello, hello. Testing closed captions. Let's see if they appear. There's a huge delay between Restream and YouTube. Hello, hello. Testing closed captions. Ah, nice. Let's see if they appear. It works. Oh, hello. Hello, Jesse. There's a huge delay between Restream and YouTube. Okay. Hello, Jonas.
My least favorite thing in the entire world is hearing myself talk. Like when I leave voicemails, and then I accidentally hear them. I'm like,
You get used to this over time.
Yeah, you do it so much. Videos too.
I don't believe you. I'm still not used to it.
Not anymore. I'm not doing too many videos lately, but yeah, but I will start soon, one per week at least. So yeah, I'll get even more used. Oh yeah. So how's it going?
Pretty good, man. It finally feels like it's getting towards spring here, so that's nice.
Yeah,
How is it over there?
I'm here. And yeah, replying to what Jonas was saying about Zoom. As far as I know, Lucas told me that it's all in Restream. Restream. We have to say Restream, otherwise it doesn't caption it correctly. It's not Restream. So yeah, that's all I know.
Hola.
Hola.
Well, it's a bad timing for Lucas to as soon as the person that knows everything about live, like what we do with live streams, etc., goes on holidays, you know how bad it gets. And what needs to change.
Actually, he told me this privately, like, hey, you have to take care of the live stream. It's all in Restream, already configured, blah blah blah. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe he meant that I have to connect Zoom with Restream.
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Well, I was going to say, like, I'm happy to get out of the call if we hit a limit, but I can't. Otherwise, it will finish the call. So yeah. So you will be happy to quit the call.
For sure. And then you can
I decide that you will be happy to do it.
Yeah. Let's see how many joins. It's
Yeah,
probably
I don't
not
think
gonna
many
be
people
an
will
issue.
join, to be honest. Let's see.
Let's see.
Our things are here.
So what?
How are things, Sergio?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sergio?
It's because I cough at the same time you say something, so I didn't hear it. Yeah, good. So far, so good.
It's a good summer.
To what? How about you?
I'm always good.
Of course.
No, all fine. Yeah, much better now after holidays. Yeah, it's always better.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Let's put some beautiful background here. This one is much better. Yeah.
You have too much power.
This one is not bad. Okay, this one. Well, No, not this one. This one is much better. We even have a logo, I think, here. No. Damn it.
Oh,
I think it's fine like this.
I think so.
You're the master.
This was
It's not like we have the power to stop you. So whatever you decide.
what? Sorry?
It's not like we have the power to stop you anyway. So
No.
yeah, whatever
But
you
you have
decide.
the power. You have the power to convince me to stop. Or you think you have?
That's too much.
It's an illusion.
It's an illusion.
Should we give it a few more minutes, or should we just
Yeah.
get going? Was that a yes to get going, or yes to wait?
I would say it's wait for 2 minutes more.
Yeah, sure.
I'm reading your messages now, Jonas.
Which one?
The private ones about Zoom and streaming it and yeah, on time.
I'm complaining about Sergio.
Perfect.
All right. Nice.
Nice.
Wow.
Should we do this? Maybe.
Yeah, that's one. That's
Better.
much better.
Nice.
Nice. Every time I hear your mouse clicking, Frank, it's like a surprise on the
What?
background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear the mouse click and then
Yes.
like a second after is hey, and
Hey.
we have people in the chat. Welcome. Remember that you can participate through the chat as well if you want. Or if you want, you can join live. You have
Maybe
the link
personally.
on the link is on Slack. I'm not gonna post it on YouTube to avoid spammers to join. So yeah.
Fair enough. Dun, 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 dun. Zoom link isn't working.
I should probably join the Zoom call and explain folks that we're here.
Maybe, yeah.
We just
Yeah, like if you
Now
want to
it's-
join the call, there's a link on Slack to join live as well. But it's on Restream instead.
I'm gonna mute myself otherwise.
Otherwise. Oh, wait. Fuck. I forgot I was still connecting to Zoom. It was just standing there waiting for Fran to start it. So I was like, well, 2 meetings. for everyone watching, we're just waiting a few minutes for everyone to join since we had a little bit of a mix-up with.
We have people on the Zoom call, so I'm redirecting them here. So
Exactly.
so let's wait a few more minutes.
Yep. Is there really no way of seeing who joins or who is who on the video call? Like I can't see any names.
Frank, are you talking? I mean,
think
you are
it's
muted.
so-
It's fine. Okay.
I'm in two calls at the same time. Imagine having two meetings at the same time.
I could imagine some doing it, and then you are active in one call and you are passive in the another.
That's what people do with all hands calls, right? Like it's there in the background while you keep working or doing some other stuff, right?
Yeah, you should just do like some claps sometimes. And
Yeah, from time to
thumbs ups.
time, yeah. Like
And
yeah,
then
I
see
agree
ya.
with that. Whatever. I don't know what you said, but I agree with that. All right. Cool. So welcome, Todd.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or good evening,
morning.
probably, to many of you.
Yeah, good afternoon here. Good morning for you. All right. So it seems nobody else is joining the Zoom call. So I think we're good to go. Jonas
Nice.
or whoever wants to take the lead, not me.
Should we stay silent until somebody takes the lead? I was like, whoever wants to.
We can have this discussion now, like who should be taking the lead, and then spend like 30 minutes.
I'll roll some
Um,
dice and see whoever gets picked.
we don't we don't make decisions in this call, so I advocate for keeping the same one.
All right. So I propose something. We discuss here. We quit the call. We take the decision, and then we join again. You know.
No. I guess let's get starting. So, hello everyone. So this is our third 3.0 meeting. And before jumping into the agenda, I just want to ask if there's anybody who have any questions, anything they like to discuss before jumping in. I guess that's a no. All right, let's get going then. So a little bit update on defining a collection of applications. So this is an issue that kind of got what's called like appeared in other issues. That is a discussion about whether we should be able to define multiple applications within an async API file. One of the next steps that I plan on doing is schedule a call for probably next week, where we will be discussing some of the aspects of it and trying to go through finding out the pros and cons of the different solutions that there is, whether we actually should support it, and to who such a feature would be beneficial. For example, does it benefit the architecture? Does it benefit the consumer of the or external parties, or does it benefit the engineer that actually creates the applications, or whatever it might be? So yeah, I will try and particularly define the basically the same as an agenda for this meeting, so it's more precise what we have to go through in order to get to the goals. But other than that, it will be an open discussion and just see where it takes us, basically. But yeah, I plan on finishing that this week, and then probably the first call will be for next week. Anybody have any questions for it? All right, Sergio, you're up.
Okay. So, are you gonna move the screen and click on the link, Jonas? Now that you're,
Do you want me to?
if you want, I can share it. I don't mind.
You
I
talked
can share it.
about down
We
here.
share the screen then.
Okay. I think Frank can
Oh.
switch them around.
So I think I can share it for some technical thing here. It says unable to share the screen.
Yes.
Some permissions. Anyway, so can you keep the tab open? Yeah, please. Thank you.
Which comment?
Yeah, I
do you
should
want me to?
scroll down. Yes, almost. A bit upper.
I can't see anything.
Right there. One earlier, which is Maciek. Sorry, because I cannot share. I don't know what happened.
This one?
Well, anyway, there are like few comments in this issue about the proposal to solve publish and subscribe confusion that Fran made a few months ago. What I want to give a quick update on this is that there are some work that has been already included in 2.3, and some other is pending on for 3.0. But still, there were some issues or concerns that we had to investigate and solve. So recently, Maciek raised some concerns about the development experience whenever we introduce some changes regarding extracting operations into the root of the document, plus defining messages inside the channels. So keeping messages inside channels and extracting operations to the root of the document. I think it's a very valid concern. We want to solve some issues we have with the current spec. We want to introduce new features so we can allow users to define their channels and messages without the need of declaring operations. I think this is a very valid use case because you might not be interested at all on operations because you want just to describe your current system, right? Your current channels, your current queue system, or whatever you are using. The point is that, as I said, Maciek raised some concerns regarding development experience. So that with the changes we suggested here, we might adding some penalty on this user experience. I agree with that, but I couldn't find a good balance between providing the new feature, keeping a good user experience on the solution, So I would really like you if you can be involved on this, because I consider like super important. And yeah, basically join the party.
Yep. So from my side, I think so. Magic reached out privately after these comments and explained the real issue behind this because I couldn't understand what he was saying. Um, and so apparently, the thing is that you can have a set of messages, let's say 10 messages on a given channel on a given topic, right? And certain applications will publish some of these messages, a subset of these 10, and certain applications will subscribe to these messages. So there is no easy way to know which one. So, for instance, if you declare them on the channel, not on the operation, like which one am I publishing and which one am I subscribing to? From these 10, I just want to subscribe or publish one of them. Then my response was, you can define it on the operation. On the operation, you can use $ref mechanism and say, I want to publish only this specific message. Problem with this, or the UX penalty that we're talking about here, is that on the channel you have a $ref pointing to 10 different messages, message 1, 2, 3, up to 10, and on the operation you have a $ref to message 4, for instance. So you end up with $2 refs pointing to the same message. So it's a duplication. It's a duplication of things. So you're specifying that you want message 4 on your operation and on the channel, right? So like there's a bit of repetition there. I mean, honestly, to me, I don't think it matters a lot. Um, I understand the concern that you have $2 refs there. Okay, might be a bit of a pain that you have to reference both messages into the same message in two places. Another thing that I wanted to suggest is that I think, Sergio, if I understood correctly, this was your proposal, that we don't use $refs, we use message IDs. So we assign IDs to messages, and therefore on the operation you reference the ID of the message that you want to use.
Yeah, this is what we are seeing now in the.
But still, like, you still have the same problem. You don't have $2 refs. You have two IDs, right? The same ID repeated in two places. So the application is still there, just not the $ref. It's going to be the message ID. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, like looking forward, I would love to move out from using a lot of $ref, specifically when it's inside the same document. If it's to point to an external document, that's fine, a URL or another file or something, that's fine. But inside the same document, I think it will be cool if things work by reference with IDs, without having to use a $ref mechanism. But that's another discussion. So yeah, like I can see that we go through the message ID option, but the problem remains there. Like the application is still there, and if we make $ref on channels and the message ID on the operation, then you're using two different mechanisms to refer to the same thing, to the message in this case. So this could be even more confusing. So I don't know. Like I really, to be honest, like I don't think it's going to be a concern. I don't think it's going to be a problem, because what we're saying there is, so here's a list of potential messages that anyone in the company can publish to this topic, or can subscribe from this topic, but this message can be flowing through this topic and anyone in the company can do it. And this particular operation is about this specific message. Of course, there's a repetition, but I think it's cool. Like it's good because it lets you, it gives you the power of standardizing governance over the messages at company level or at domain level if you want, or at a bigger level. And how can I say, like, it still gives you the power, even though you're standardizing at company level. It still gives you the power to tweak it, to be more specific. Like, for this specific application, for this specific operation, I don't want any of these messages, or all of these messages. I want just one, right? So it gives you this power. But so Maciek, what was suggesting is, like, let's get rid of messages on channels. If we do that, then we're penalizing other people. We're penalizing this use case where you want to govern all your messages at company level and make sure that that not like people cannot just publish whatever they want on whatever topic, right? The cool thing about having them defining channels is that this is like the restriction. Like, at company level, you can publish one of these 10 messages. If we remove this, then I'll publish one, you'll publish another one, then, and it's going to be chaotic, because my definition of the operation is going to be in this file, your definition of the operation is going to be in another file, and unknown files in unknown places. So how do you gather then all of them and make sure that you collected all the potential messages that can flow into this message? You don't. You have no way to do it, because you always fear that there might be another async API file somewhere where where someone is defining a completely different message. So yeah, I think it might be a trade-off that you have to kind of duplicate there. But it gives you a lot of power in this case. If we manage to find a solution where we can get rid of this duplication and still preserve the same benefits, I'm all ears. I'm all in. So it's like, really. But yeah, I can't think on a better solution, to be honest.
Can I ask?
I can't believe that Jesse is raising the hand. Like,
No, okay.
it's good that we're recording.
I'll say that I am very sympathetic to what you just said, Fran. I do think that there's challenges in that. What if an application defines that it sends a message that's not listed in the channel? I think you speak well to the need to govern things at a channel level. I think that's a very common enterprise use case, but that still doesn't prevent a sort of rogue application from writing, or at least defining that it writes to a particular channel. I guess I do think that, but what you said, sort of the hide and seek of async API files and need to walk that dependency is hard. I wonder if there is some sort of way to sort of create, and this is more of a JSON schema thing, where we inherit the list of messages from the channel, and then you're allowed to select one from that list of particular messages. I don't know if there's an elegant way of doing that. In other words, you have a list of potential IDs that are defined on the channel. Your application gets to select one of those, and if it's not present in the channel definition, then it throws an error.
Would that not actually be the case with what's proposed now? For example, here, where you kind of tie this operation to a channel, right? Whatever messages you define in here, whether you use references or just IDs, the parser, whenever it's
Jonas,
parsed, validates, right?
Jonas, sorry to interrupt. Can you make the text bigger?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, man.
See if I can find it again.
Yeah, I think that's great. Is that operationalized through some sort of JSON schema thing, or is that a business rule that we associate with async API?
That's a great question, because we can do it with JSON schema, and we can force all parsers. Let's say that all parsers use our JSON schema files to validate an async API document. We could, in theory, I think, match these definitions between what's defined in the operations down here versus what's defined up here. But if not, it would require some extra check on a parser level. And we already have a few on the JavaScript parser, which kind of cross-match those things. I'm not sure which one is best to do, but yeah, it's possible.
That was
Yeah.
the purpose of adding IDs on the messages as well, right? Just to simplify the operation, like not the operation on the object, but just matching by ID, a simple string.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, to me, that seems like a promising way forward. I have not spent as much time with these particular comments as I should, but it sounds like a really interesting way forward.
A quick question, like if we had to like boil it down, like the too long didn't read kind of thing is because we want reusability for channels and messages, you have to add this keyword. That's basically the too long didn't read.
Is it
Yeah.
reusability, the word here?
Yeah, it's because you want to reuse channels and messages because
Oh.
you can't tie operations and messages anymore, but messages.
I would say it's more like a
channel.
constraint, right? Like if a message is not present on the channel, you won't be able to use it on the operation. If we want to go in that direction, because we could also don't force that. That's another concern raised few comments earlier, I think. Like if we don't force that, whoever wants to write whatever, like it's open to their user interpretation, right? But the concern was again on development experience. Like if you give tons of options, it's gonna be maybe harder to understand.
So, I think, yeah, like if you're given a lot of options, like for instance, whatever is defined on the operation might not have to be defined on the channel, it wasn't my proposal, but let's assume for a second that we could do this. So you can define something different on operation and channel. I think it's good. I mean, like, well, in this case, it's going to be, yeah, we're going to end up with a lot of edge cases, where, like I mentioned before, right? Like in the case where people are using it only on operations but not on channels, like how do you get then all the messages that are being published to specific channel, to specific topic? You can't. So, but in other cases, you will be able to get them when it's defined on channels. So I will not go this way. I will be like constraining, like you said, that. So my proposal was, I don't know if I was clear or not on the proposal, but it's like whatever is in channels, it's the truth, and then operations define a subset of what is there, right? So it's like either all of them or just one of them. And I think in terms of user experience, it might be worst, but you may or may not agree with me here, but in the medium long term, I will love to see people not writing async API by hand anymore, right? So that will be, if you want to do it, you will be able to do it, of course. But I think we should go in a direction where people have enough tools in different, async API tools, or it can be, like Solaz or Postman or whatever other tools, where they don't need to write async API files by hand. That means that this duplication concern on the user experience disappears because you're not editing it by hand. So yeah, and you're not changing it by hand either. So yeah, that's not really a problem. And that's the direction I would love this to take. Like people, like the same way you don't edit PDF documents on your code editor. You open it on Microsoft Word or Adobe Acrobat or whatever, and you edit there, and you save your changes. You could open a PDF on your code editor and start editing it, but who does that, right? So I think ideally we should take this direction. Like the format, the async format, it's like an internal, if you want, internal format, in the internal format, right? That nobody should be caring about, right? Other than people who are in love with specs, then okay, these people are. I'm sure these people will not complain about having to duplicate things, right? So yeah,
I just want to no, go sorry. No.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to raise a quick concern that I didn't raise earlier. Trying to be quick. So you said, Fran, you said that people will define their operations in several files. Let's call it different teams, different whatever context, whatever. But the issue here that I see is that you will force someone to update the list of messages in channel whenever you want to introduce a new one, and this could also be a problem somehow. You know, some people will like it because you have all the control over what it can be published, but some other may not care. So at the end, it's everything is centralized.
I want to like point to a difference. Like what you said is like it's not ideal, but it's possible. It's doable. What I was saying is impossible, right? Like it's impossible to make sure that you gather all the operations that are defined in all async API files in your company, because you will always fear that there is one async API file that you didn't take into account, and therefore you will always live in fear that you missed something. So it's like, how do you call this? Like it's and determinate. Like it is impossible to determine the state of something, like 100% sure. While the other thing is more a company process, and this is something they have to take care about, not us.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
I agree with you though, and there is a normative assumption here that that you should know exactly which messages are in your channel, which I think actually is a good normative assumption. But I agree that we are sort of forcing people to adopt a certain model. But I would say if you're using async API to define your infrastructure, maybe you've already made that normative choice that some level of governance is a positive thing. But you're totally right.
I just wanted to quickly raise, and not an issue, but if you go with the direction of IDs for messages, we have the feature that was implemented where you can reference a server and a specific channel together has a bit of ambiguity, which is not that well defined. And Vladimir have raised an issue on this, and this will be exactly the same kind of issue that you will be facing with channels and messages. That has to be well defined within the spec. So it's just to raise the issue, not anything else. All right. Does anybody have any more questions for that? No? Okay, so next up, I wanted to quickly raise a point in order to which repositories are ready to accept change for the next major version. The only tools I found so far was that the Parser repository has this next major version branch. All of the other all of the other repositories do not have this in place yet, meaning that we are unable to move forward in changing the specifics of JSON schema, for example, for the spec, and we are not. I guess we are able to do it for the parser, but not the spec repo. So this is kind of what I saw that was missing. So just wanted to raise the flag for, I guess, Fran.
I can. I'm already taking care of this. I'll create the branch. No worries.
Perfect.
Yeah. I want to add something before you jump in the next. I also added a comment. There is a Slack thread I created like a few. Yeah. Okay. So should we also adopt this kind of the next major style of branching for minors? Because semantic release also allows that instead of using the tags that we were using with a date, I think it's worth to keep just always a branch for the minor and one for the major. I mean, it feels like comfortable, right? I don't know.
It makes sense for larger changes, right? Because then you can dial it down into separate PRs and it's easier to work with. But otherwise, it's not needed. Because with the way that the CI system works and the way that we deploy new versions, right, everything is continuous. So in order to have those branches for small up fixes, etc., it would kind of hinder the release. I would say, at least. So maybe in certain scenarios, it would definitely benefit.
Yeah, I guess this is only related with new releases of the spec and schemas, maybe parser. I don't know.
That is actually a good point. I didn't thought about that, yeah. For spec releases where we have to have all of the changes, so instead of waiting for the last minute to merge everything into the repositories, we do it continuously into these smaller branches. And then in the end, we just merge one PR in each repository, and then we are good to go, basically, right? That's the idea, as I understand. That makes sense.
So I think it's a good idea, and it's better to for automating stuff, because you always right now, the way it is right now on our GitHub action, we have like a pattern which is asterisk dash release branch name. Then we could make it more specific, and it's like next or next major, so it will be clear. And I think I will make it like this in the JSON schema definitions and on the spec, but not on the parser maybe. And I'm going to explain why. So I think we should start trying to go in a different direction now with parser, which is right now when we have something to add to the spec, what we do is we add it to the parser as well, and we try to ship it together with the spec, so all at the same time, at the spec and the JSON schemas of the spec, so the three at the same time. But I will start encouraging that we start adding like flags on the spec, right? So on the parser, sorry, so that you can enable certain features with feature flags, with environment variables, depending on what you're doing. So certain features are immediately available only if you enable them explicitly, right? So they can land on the parser in a decoupled fashion, and you don't have to wait for the spec, and you can be testing the spec before it's launched, and you don't have to create these long-lived branches, which are always a pain, especially if you start rebasing them and things like this. So yeah, I think we should try at least moving in this direction. It has its own drawbacks. like feature flags can be a pain. I've been there in the past, and especially because everything is fine. I'm gonna add a new feature flag, and I'm gonna just add my code here. Cool. Now it's released. Everything is released. Now we have this on the spec. Blah blah blah, and suddenly, oh, I forgot to delete the feature flag. And you end up with a ton of feature flags there that you don't really know if they are already shipped or not, or you can remove them or not. So yeah, it has its own drawbacks. So you will probably have to create some process where before releasing the spec, or at the same time we release the spec, the new version of the spec, you remove the feature flag, which still needs a pull request. So yeah, up to you. Just ideas.
Okay.
So you mentioned feature flags for minor versions,
for everything.
which but I'm thinking about it and I cannot see this. But it's my fault for sure. I cannot see the use case because if it's a feature that you can use right now without depending on a spec change, you will release that on their master and that's it, right? Like you don't care. I mean, you don't care. You know what I mean? You just release it and that's all. So in case you depend on spec change schema, you won't be able to release that with any.
You will. You have to have a separate version of the schema just for this feature. When you're using this feature, you don't use the master schema. You use your own version, or you inject some changes, which is, I mean, I'm not gonna get into the implementation details, but you can just like, instead of using this schema, you use this other schema, right? You know what I mean? So I know it's a pain, and it will end up having a lot of schemas. And the more feature flags that we have, more schema versions that the parser will contain, which is not ideal. But yeah, like there are ways to do it, and you can have just a part of the schema that changes. And yeah, I don't know.
Sergio, do you have an issue for it? So
ideas.
Do you have a PR for that?
no, but it was a serious question. Do you have an issue where like that discussion can take place?
I have no issue. So this was just an idea.
No, it was Sergio, but yeah.
Okay.
But thanks for answering.
But we don't have, but we do have now a video recording for this.
Yeah, do you mind rating that for whatever repository you see fit?
But the feature flags, you mean?
No, the part about your branch.
Yeah.
And then Fran can like.
But Fran is already working on that. He said so.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you can expect the pull request in 2026. Probably. Probably.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Anything to ask? Same question. All right. So before going further, I just wanted to raise that I added this to-do list, which is kind of in which order things have to happen. So, for example, we have to add these new branches before we can move on to whatever tasks are ahead. And this is the same with any features that is accepted. So yeah, just add a comment if you want anything changed, because that's the only way I see that we can do it, and I'll add it. Thank you.
Yeah. Regarding the intent-driven API implementation for the parser, Jonas made a wonderful PR with the first implementation of it. And we iterated a bit. Fran suggested some changes, or more than changes in code, more like the philosophy of the API, I would say. So there was some back and forth on it. And the last update Fran did, it was a good suggestion. So to retake the intents, because at some point there was some confusion about using intents or discarding intents for the defining the API. So in order to simplify the API and the user experience, um, Fran suggested to use some filter methods, like to filter operation channels, whatever, by their kind in that case. So anyway, the update is gonna be that I'm gonna take this work. So I'm gonna overtake Jonah's work, and I will implement this and keep iterating. So I will most probably be updating you. Well, for the next meeting, you will have more updates about it.
I will
Feel
say
free to join.
you probably want to explain why this is relevant to Spec 3, right?
We didn't do it in the no, maybe not.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
We probably
don't
Okay.
don't assume that everyone has been on the other one.
Yeah. So what is this? The intent driven is it's an approach we want to take for declaring the new API we want to implement in the parsers. An API that basically is based on user intentions rather than based on the document hierarchy, would say. With this API, we want to make it better in terms of user experience, to avoid breaking changes as much as possible as well, to be retrocompatible from at least from now on, let's say, starting with 3.0, even though we aim for allowing also 2.x versions with this API. But the reason this is going to be in a major version of the parser, it's because it's basically breaking everything, right? It's completely new API for the parser. And this is related with v3 spec, yes, because we are basing the API, even though it's more abstract concept, it's not based on the document hierarchy, as I said, but still the concepts send, receive that we want to introduce, for example, in v3, they are in this API. So that's why we are talking about this in the v3 meeting. Is it okay?
maybe also elaborate on how people can use it. So, like, what's the plan is, like, how fast can people start using the new API in order to see it actually in action?
You mean when people will be able to start using it?
Yeah, just the idea around it. This next major branch, that it is being released on NPM as well, which means that you can iterate or actually start using the API, right?
Yeah,
As
you
soon as
say it
possible.
perfectly. So yeah, we have a new branch called Next Measure that right now it's being automatically released thanks to Lucas' work on that. So if you want to test it, you can just use it directly. It's a new tag that I think we are releasing with pre-release tags. So anyway, it's in the release in GitHub releases on the Parser.js repository. So you can start using it right now, in fact.
Yeah, and I would like to clarify the difference between the existing API and this API. Like, why is it better? Like you said, like it's going to be better, but like not clear why. Maybe I don't know. You want to, you know what I mean?
Yes, sure. Why it's better?
What
I
like
think
I would say, like, what do you mean by like the existing one is like mapping the structure of the document, right?
Yes.
But what does it mean? Like, right? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the current API basically it's a copy, let's say, of the current async API document representation. So any change we do, There are two things here that we aim to fix. One, avoiding possible or potential breaking changes. So if we introduce new features and like a new measure that we are doing with V3, the API will be completely broken, right? Because as it's exactly like, for example, we are introducing extracting operations into the root document, so this won't be able to be reproduced in the parser, as right now they are inside the channels. So what we aim with this API is to avoid this by extracting from the document hierarchy to just a selection of models that we have. It's going to be better to share this, because otherwise, if you can share this, a collection of models based on the concepts around async API, which is what is a channel, what is an operation, what is a server, etc. Why improves the development experience? Because we try to be based on intents again, as I said, so intentions of the real user. Instead of having to know exactly the whole document hierarchy, you will have methods on your API that will give you whatever you need for you directly. You don't have to know 100% how the spec it is. So in the case, for example, you want messages that are being sent through a channel, so you will have one method for basically giving you to this. You don't have to filter manually by the kind of operation and so on. Did I explain myself well? Not so well. It's not a good day today.
I mean, if someone has any questions, I think it's the time to ask. So yeah.
I'm sure I would know this if I looked at that, but since I have it here, so the return format for these queries is actually the JSON that is present within async API, or is it a new format that's being introduced for the async for this particular API?
Yeah, the returned thing, it's just models. So we are modeling everything. So in the case you are asking for messages, you will have a collection of message models. It's not the JSON, the raw JSON. Yeah.
Got it. And this is a protobuf definition? How are those returns defined?
Oh, those are just custom models we are building up in the parser. So it's just JavaScript.
Within JavaScript. So is there any? So is there a REST API implementation of this, either now or later? Could this be operationalized as, say, like a registry concept?
It's a good point. I would like to elaborate on this, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I was
think
just wondering.
We didn't think about it at all, to be honest.
Okay.
So if you think it makes sense, I would suggest you to create an issue, because
yeah, I'll think more of it too. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but it's good to contextualize. This is like, just straight up like JavaScript API as opposed to like a exposed REST API kind of model.
But in that case, when we talk about the API, it's just the library API, right? So it's nothing network operable thing.
Got it. That helps me contextualize it. So thank you.
I'm afraid my questions probably won't be as precise or interesting, but just to play it back, is this saying we want to have an API for developers to be able to parse a document and have a layer of sort of abstraction in that API, so that a 2.x document and a 3 document both parse, from the perspective of that client developer using the Parser API, because we've abstracted it to intent versus sort of very close to the metal in terms of the root document.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Just from that user perspective, in this case, a developer using that library.
At the end,
Yeah.
it's more work. To be honest, it's like at the beginning it's more work on the parser JS. On the long term, it should be way easier to maintain.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There are
It's probably
problems.
it's shifting the work to maybe a different party. So yeah, now you're, as an API developer who's trying to sort of map intents to maybe multiple generations of spec, that could get, that's work.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the idea behind the intent-driven API is that we shift, as you said, like the workload from users of the spec towards to us, let's say. So we deal with it ourselves, and so this way, and the intention, the intention behind working on this kind of API is that people can migrate to future versions of the spec in an easy way, in a seamless way, right? So they don't have to change their code base. They only have to upgrade the version of the parser they're using, and immediately they will be able to use version 3, version 4, version 5, right?
Yeah.
Unless they want to use new features, of course. In this case, they will have to, of course, code the features, but existing code they have for version 2, or for, let's say, for version 3 of the spec, if we release 3.1, 3.2, 4, 5, whatever, the same code on their side should still work, right? It's so it's a responsibility of the parser to understand that now it's not a 3.1 file, now it's a 5.0 file. So where do I have to go to and find this information? It's not there, it's here, because we changed the layout or the structure of the document. Cool, so I have to go there or there. But in order to do that, you have to abstract the calls, right? So like there was a good definition there, like the intent for buy 5 watermelons, right, is go to the store, pick 5 watermelons, pay with go to the counter, pay with cash, put the watermelon in your bag, exit the shop, go back home, blah blah blah. Doing all the stuff. But where is the shop? Where do I grab the 5 watermelons from? How do I pay? All these things will be like should be abstracted, right? So it's like, no, I just want to buy 5 watermelons. Do whatever you have to do behind the scenes, right? And give me the watermelons, right? That's it. So it's like, I want to find how many messages are we sending to a specific channel? How is it defined in version 2? I'll have to go to channels and then going to every subscribe operation. And then inside the subscribe operation, I have to find the message and do this for, for each channel or for a specific channel that you tell me. But in version 3, you probably have to find not probably, you will have to do it differently. You don't go through channels only anymore. You have to go through operations as well, and so on and so on. So that's how you build all the same information and give it to the user. The user will still receive all the messages, an array of messages that are published to specific topic or channel, but the way you obtain them is different, right? But their code base will just say, give me the messages on this channel. That's it. So whenever they upgrade to version 3, version 4, version 5, their code remains the same, right? And so it will be easier for them to migrate. Because the way it is right now, it's the parser API is a map of the document. So for instance, right now we have info object at the root level and the title. So now you do async API dot info dot title, right, to get the title. What if we move the title out of the info object? or we rename it to instead of title's name, right? Then they will have to change their code base, right? And everybody building tools, they will have to change their tools. We don't want that, right? We don't want to be so coupled to the spec that every time we release a new major version, we'll be fearing that people will not want to migrate because they already invested a lot into the existing version, right? So yeah. Oh yeah,
Something worth to
yeah.
note. Something worth to note here is that we can also introduce deprecations on methods, and this is an interesting point, since we can give support for other versions with a warning or whatever, and to just new methods. So
It does seem like whoever builds it, it does seem like a community type of tooling that will be needed by developers. Whoever builds it, I suppose it's a life cycle too. It provides some ability to have learnings and adjust the document format through major versions of the spec, where legitimately the committee can say, well, this is really improved formatting of the document, but the intent semantically doesn't change. So how can we give some degree of freedom to evolve the format? And obviously we'd expect those number of changes to slow through major releases. So there's some insurance policy, I suppose.
we do have the Parser API repository, where we theoretically we will add all the rules for specifying what an intent is. That's the first thing. It's not only about this the example I wrote about the watermelons, but a guidelines for the community to evolve the API itself. This is very difficult, I can tell you, and it's most probably the most difficult part. How to train kind of others on into this, but definitely it's an important point, and it should be included here in the Parser API. Parser API, it's like the repository where we will define this. We do have Parser JS right now, but any other parser implementation, official parsers under ASIC API umbrella, will most probably use or should follow this API and all the rules in this repository.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to highlight as well. Like, this is not just for the JavaScript parser. So ideally, I mean, not that, for us, it's going to be following this set of rules. Like the interface, the API is going to be the same for a JavaScript parser. If we end up creating a Java parser, the same interface is going to be available for the Java parser. For the Go parser, the same thing. I mean, some certain things might change in the way that, to adapt to the language. Like, for instance, Go makes it mandatory that public methods start with uppercase. So I mean, these differences are trivial, but the like the API should be the same across languages, right? So if we manage to standardize this API over time and together work on this interface layer, what's going to happen is that for tooling vendors and for tooling creators, this API will be the spec. This API is going to be the facade for the spec. And so you can evolve the spec as you want without breaking anything, right, on their side. Ideally, of course. I mean, there will be breaking changes at some point, I'm sure. We cannot foresee every breaking change in the future, but if we can reduce them to a certain let's say amount, right, like at least the stupid changes, like let's move this here from here or rename this or that, I mean, these things should be cheap to do on the spec, and we shouldn't be fearing that, right? So yeah. I guess we're over time already.
We are. But yeah, I guess that sums up this meeting. Anybody want to finish it off with something? Anything important? All right. Thanks, everyone. And I guess we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.